The handcuffs went on at 9:47 in the morning. Right there on Elmwood Drive, in front of every manicured lawn, every twitching curtain, every neighbor who once smiled and said nothing. She didn't go quietly. She never did anything quietly. But this time, her voice had no power left in it. Just noise, dissolving into the sound of a patrol car door closing shut. A child had been missing for 48 hours. A basement had been locked from the outside. And the woman who ran this neighborhood like a private kingdom was finally running out of road. What she did was not impulsive. It was not a misunderstanding. It was not a moment of poor judgment. It was calculated, cold, and carried out against a 9-year-old girl whose only crime was having a father who said no. But to understand why she's in handcuffs, you need to go back 3 weeks. Elmwood Drive looked like peace. Trimmed hedges, matching mailboxes, and children's bikes left unkicked on tidy driveways. From the outside, it was the kind of neighborhood people saved for. From the inside, it was Karen's. She chaired the HOA with the energy of someone who had confused a zip code with a throne. Fines appeared in mailboxes overnight. Cameras tracked movement that no one consented to. Complaints were filed over paint shades, flag sizes, and garbage bins left out 40 minutes past the permitted window. She didn't govern the neighborhood. She occupied it. I moved in 18 months before any of this happened. Single father, quiet routine, no interest in politics or feuds. My daughter Sophia was 9, curious about everything, gentle with everyone, and sharper than most adults I knew. She was my entire reason for every decision I made. I protected that quietly and completely. Karen had a son named Randall, 14. Loud in the way that comes from never being told no, and already wearing his mother's entitlement like a hand-me-down coat. Karen never liked me. I felt it early and filed it under irrelevant. I paid my dues, followed the rules, nodded politely, and stayed invisible. Until she made that impossible. The text came on a Thursday evening. Karen asks if Sophia would like to spend Saturday afternoon with Randall. A playdate. Those were the exact words she used. I read it twice, then a third time, waiting for context that would make it make sense. It never came. A 14-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl have no natural common ground. The age gap alone carries weight. Different maturity, different awareness, different everything. My instincts didn't whisper. They spoke clearly, and I had no intention of arguing with them. I tried the soft route first. Sophia had homework, then tutoring, then a family dinner that didn't exist. Karen responded within seconds each time, like she had the rebuttals already loaded. Too quick, too prepared. The back and forth had the feel of something rehearsed rather than spontaneous, and that alone made my skin tighten. So I told her the truth. Calmly, directly, without apology. Different ages, different worlds, and I wasn't comfortable with unsupervised time between them. That was it. Simple, honest, and final. It cracked something open in her. The tone of her messages shifted immediately. Wounded pride bleeding into accusation. Accusation escalating into something uglier. I was judgmental. I was superior. I was raising a child too precious for normal human contact. Paragraph after paragraph, each one angrier than the last. Then came the line that landed differently from the rest. She wrote that precious things fade faster than people expect. I muted the conversation, told myself it was noise. I was wrong. Monday arrived like any other day. Sophia ate breakfast, packed her bag, and kissed my cheek before boarding the bus. I watched it pull away, went to work, and counted down the hours the way parents do. Not dramatically, just quietly, that low hum of awareness that never fully switches off. My shift ended at 4. I checked the clock, checked my phone, and noticed the silence where a message should have been. 10 minutes late became 30. 30 became an hour. I called her school phone. No answer. I called again. Nothing. By the time they returned my call, my hands were already on my keys. A woman had picked Sophia up early, they said. She claimed to be her aunt. Sophia recognized her and went willingly. The staff saw no reason to question it. I felt the floor disappear beneath me. Sophia does not have an aunt in this city. She has never been picked up early. Not once. There is no version of that sentence that ends safely, and every second I stood there was a second I couldn't afford to lose. I drove to the HOA office because my gut drove me there. Karen sat behind her desk, wearing concern like a tailored jacket, lips pressed together, voice measured, hands folded. She knew nothing, saw nothing. The cameras, she explained with a slow blink, had been down during that exact window. Maintenance issue. Terrible timing. Her eyes didn't match her words once. I called the police. And that's when Karen's story began to move. The car changed color between retellings. The direction shifted. The timeline stretched and compressed depending on who was asking. A story that changes is a story being managed, and everyone in that room could feel it. Then two neighbors stepped forward separately, without coordination. Both had seen Karen walking fast earlier that afternoon, a small child beside her, hoodie pulled low, head down. The officers looked at the messages I handed them, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. They asked Karen if they could search her home. She refused, immediately, sharply, like the answer had been ready long before the question. The warrant came through within the hour. Karen met it with everything she had left. Rights violations, HOA bylaws cited from memory, threats of lawsuits named after attorneys she probably didn't have. Her voice filled the street, sharp and desperate, the sound of someone who had always used noise as a weapon, discovering that noise has limits. The officers moved past her and into the house without hesitation. Authority had finally arrived with something she couldn't fine, override, or dissolve with a committee vote. They moved floor by floor, methodical, unhurried. Each room opened and cleared while Karen's protests followed them like static. Then they reached the basement door. Locked. Handle unmoving. The kind of lock you choose when you don't want something found. The officer knocked once. Then the door came off. Wood splintered. Light flooded down concrete steps. And there she was. Sophia sat on a folding chair with a blanket pulled around her shoulders and a juice box held in both hands, nearly empty. Her eyes were tired in the way that comes from holding yourself together for too long. But she was unbroken. She looked up, found my face, and ran. I dropped to my knees on that basement floor and held her without words. I counted her breaths. I felt her heartbeat against my chest. I didn't move until the world felt solid again. Behind me, Karen's composure finally gave way, not into remorse, but into justification. She meant no harm. 48 hours was nothing. She only wanted to teach me humility. Each sentence landed colder than the one before it, more revealing, more damning. The excuses of someone who had planned everything except being caught. The handcuffs went on while her neighbors watched from the street. Every one of them is silent. Every one of them witnessing the moment her kingdom became a crime scene. The evidence didn't trickle in. It arrived all at once, from every direction, like it had been waiting for permission. Phone records confirmed the coordination. Bus stop footage captured the pickup. Witness statements aligned without contradiction. And the messages, every threatening, calculated word Karen had sent, were entered into record exactly as written. Her story stopped changing because there was nowhere left for it to go. The truth had closed every exit. Randall was removed from the home within days. The HOA board called an emergency session and dissolved itself by unanimous vote, as if distance from her name was the only thing left they could offer. It wasn't enough, but it was something. The court moved with rare efficiency. The judge reviewed the evidence, heard the timeline, and called it precisely what it was. Premeditated kidnapping. Not a lapse, not a breakdown. A decision, made deliberately, executed carefully, and sustained for 48 hours against a 9-year-old child. The sentence was 20 years, $1 million in damages, assets seized, every title, every position, every carefully accumulated symbol of authority, stripped. Her name, once printed at the top of every HOA notice, became the kind of word people lower their voices to say. The neighborhood she once controlled rebuilt itself quietly and seriously. New cameras went up within the week. Policies were rewritten with actual accountability behind them. Children walked different routes home, safer ones, watched over by parents who had stopped assuming that quiet meant safe. The community that had whispered for years finally learned to speak before something demanded it. Sophia went back to school on a Tuesday. She walked in surrounded by kindness. A teacher who met her at the door, classmates who saved her a seat, a community that had finally decided protection was everyone's responsibility. She didn't ask me many questions about what happened. Children process differently. She simply returned to being herself, and I watched that with more gratitude than I have words for. I rebuilt slowly. Nights grew quieter. Trust returned carefully, the way it always does. Not all at once, but in small, reliable moments that eventually add up to something solid. If this story leaves you with anything, let it be this. Power without limits rots. Silence enables monsters. And sometimes the loudest downfall begins with a simple no, spoken calmly and without apology. Do you think 20 years was enough? Tell me in the comments. And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more, because this was far from the last story worth telling.